This week on Word on the Street, big wins and big surprises at the Grammys.
And an in-studio interview with a Hawkeye in the TV film industry.
Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of Word on the Street.
We would have been on your screen sooner, but unfortunately the snow kept us here in Iowa City and away from filming, so we have a lot of updates for you.
That's right, Hannah. To recap the awards, the Super Bowl, and our second in-studio interview. So without further ado, sit back, relax,
And here's the Word on the Street. The Grammy Awards have come and gone, but let's get right into the awards and see how many we predicted correctly. This was actually a monumental show, bringing in artists that have previously been protesting the awards due to racial inequality. A big one coming back and performing songs from his new album was The Weeknd.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to see a little bit more camaraderie and less animosity at this year's Grammys. Let's talk about the big winners of the night. Some great speeches and touching moments were kind of played throughout.
Yeah. So, to start out, Trevor Noah hosted the ceremony just like he has the past few years. Nothing new coming out of there. He's given many Grammys opening and introductions. But there are so many awards given out at the Recording Academy, 94 to be exact. But we're only going to talk about a few, the biggest ones and most surprising ones.
Yeah, that's right. Starting out with Record of the Year is Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. He also took home another award for Song of the Year. Kendrick won 5 Grammys this year and the beef with Drake, so we'll talk more about that when we recap the Super Bowl later.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really crazy how a diss track became such a huge success for him. He was big before, he was one of the big 3 in rap, but he's kind of like a household name. My parents know him at this point, and it's just really impressive that this diss track that he came up with overnight won him 5 Grammys and a spot at the Super Bowl. So
absolutely,
it's just really good for him. And I was a little shocked that Billie Eilish didn't win Song of the Year for Birds of a Feather. I mean, it was literally everywhere. It also came out much sooner and was the most streamed song worldwide.
Yeah, I was shocked we predicted that one wrong too. I mean, I thought for sure she'd take home the win considering how popular she is right now as well. I thought she for sure had that one in the bag. And winning Pop Vocal Album of the Year and her first ever Grammy is, to no one's surprise at all, Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter. Pop's solo performance also went to Sabrina for Espresso.
Yeah, I mean, good for her. I'm so proud. It's just so cool seeing a Disney star, you know, get back into music. We haven't seen that in a while. And it's just, yeah, it's really good. And the album was so catchy and literally everywhere. So she deserved something for it.
She definitely deserved this recognition. And I mean, she was the talk of the year, basically. Yeah. So I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I kind of expected this, but I was still rooting for Billie Eilish, who objectively released her best album yet. She had her best year and was one of the most top streamed artists on Apple Music and Spotify, and was named Apple Music's Artist of the Year. But I yield my opinion.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. You win some and you'll lose some, but maybe next year will be her year, depending on what she's going to put out, and we'll have to see.
Yes. And duo performance, again, no surprise, was won by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars for Die With a Smile. A lot of these artists also took time in their speeches to talk about causes important to them. Lady Gaga showed support for the trans community, saying trans people have always been here and are not invisible.
Rap album went to Alligator Bites Never Heal by rising artist Doechii. Surprising everyone and giving a stellar performance, she also gave a heartfelt speech empowering Black girls to be themselves and dream big. Country album went to Beyonce's Cowboy Carter. She was even shocked by this win. This is Beyonce's debut transition to her country roots, along with winning Best Country Duo with Miley Cyrus for her song Most Wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I was not expecting Beyonce to go into country, but then, you know, learning a little bit more about where she's from, she's been very adamant about being a Houston, Texas baby, but I think just good for her, and especially as a Black woman moving into the country sector of music, I know she has talked about how hard it was for her to get a seat at that table. So I'm just really impressed and proud of her, honestly.
Yeah, I liked her album that she put out. I will say I am like super into country music. So personally, I'm a little biased in the fact that I don't really consider what she did country. That's just me. But you know, it was a good album. I just think winning country was a little bit of a hot take in my opinion.
Yeah,
but
you're entitled, definitely.
You know,
I definitely think some big country fans feel the same way as you.
for sure.
But now for the biggest 2 awards of the night, Album of the Year and Best New Artist.
That's right, winning her first Album of the Year award after being nominated for 5 albums is Beyonce with her first country album, Cowboy Carter, as we just talked about. And now I know this is one of the biggest shocks of the night. The internet had a lot to say about this.
I mean, we certainly did not predict this one, and I don't think a lot of people did. I mean, look at Beyonce. She's so surprised, and I know that video of her like literally sitting there like, what the heck is going on? Was everywhere on TikTok. But she has won 35 Grammys, and this is her first one for Album of the Year, and many artists have taken time to recognize that Beyonce is monumental for the music industry, and how has she not won one yet? So as much as I don't know if I would like to have Cowboy Carter be Album of the Year, it is long overdue for Beyonce, and the Recording Academy kind of owed her this one.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, like I said, the country thing bothers me a little bit, but I don't remember a time that Beyonce wasn't popular. Like, we've always been talking about her, like, forever, and so I think she deserves it, and she was hilarious at the Grammys as well. I remember I watched those videos, and she's a character, and I like her for it.
Yeah, and 35 Grammys, that's the record. She passed up Michael Jackson. She is now the most rewarded woman and person in the Recording Academy.
Yeah,
So
it's incredible.
Great for her.
It's really awesome.
Yeah. But now, winning Best New Artist is, drumroll please, Chaperone! I am just so happy for her and for us for predicting this one correct.
Yes, I knew she was gonna win, and she had an incredible year and rise to fame, breaking a Lollapalooza record for her daytime set with over 100,000 people. And Chappell came out in her usual drag-inspired look and gave a performance of a lifetime with her song Pink Pony Club, which is one of my favorite songs. It's so catchy.
It's so good.
She also gave a speech in her usual iconic way, calling out the music industry for taking advantage of small artists.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a highlight for that night, was her speech. She had a standing ovation.
Yeah.
It was so cute how she went up there with her diary and like had to put her award down because she couldn't do both at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, earlier last year, no one knew her name. And then all of a sudden, a year later, she's performing on the Grammy stage, winning
It's actually
Best New Artist.
It is so cool to see.
It is so cool.
She's from the Midwest. Like her whole tour was the Midwest Princess,
Yes.
and like it's kind of cool just being in Iowa and seeing that. And I don't know about you, I love her music. Like I don't know.
I love her.
I don't know a whole lot about her herself, but like in terms of her music, like I am so here for it. I think her songs are so catchy, and I think it was a well-deserved Grammy. I called this one.
Yes,
and
and
so did you.
I don't know if you know about this yet, but yesterday she announced that she's releasing 3 new songs.
I am so excited. I did hear about
Yeah.
that. I cannot wait. Now, honorable mentions for the Grammys. Charlie XCX won Best Dance / Electronic Pop Album for Brat and Best Dance Pop Recording for her song Von Dutch. She gave a fun and energy-filled performance. Daniel Nigro won Best Producer for several of Olivia Rodrigo's and Chappell Roan's songs. Amy Allen won Best Songwriter. She's the pen behind several of Sabrina Carpenter's hits like Please, 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 Espresso, and Taste. And SZA walked away with an award for her song Saturn for Best Rhythm and Blues Song.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of these performances. I mean, incredible. We had Benson Boone with his iconic
Love
backflip.
Benson Boone.
Yeah, we had Doechii with her amazing set. And I'm going to say my favorite performance was Chappell Roan, followed very closely by Sabrina Carpenter. What do you think?
I have to say, I love Benson Boone, and I thought he was so creative and funny by like
Oh, yeah.
starting in the audience in the suit and then having
Oh my gosh.
having people like rip the suit off of him.
You can just tell he's meant to do this. And I did
Yeah.
get to see a little bit of him at Lala. I was walking by and I was like, who is that?
Yes.
And my friend was like, you don't know Benson Boone?
He started on American Idol,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's just really incredible to see like between him and Chappell Roan, these
Yeah.
people that kind of just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I don't think Benson Boone's been singing for all that long.
No.
He just kind of came out of nowhere, and I am such a fan of his. Like I love his songs, I love his vibe.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It
He's
was
just a
it was
cutie.
great.
He's just adorable.
He is adorable.
But yes, now on to the biggest snubs of the night. They were Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish, not winning a single award either of them were nominated for. And this is one of the first times Taylor Swift walked away and empty-handed. But honestly, I think that they won the vote of the people because they both had amazing years, their best years in the industry, and literally at the peak of their careers right now.
Yeah, I kind of fell for Taylor Swift a little bit because everyone loves Taylor Swift.
Well,
I mean,
there's
you
definitely some haters out there.
There might be some haters, but let's see. Like this year was her year for sure. And I mean, you're right. This is like one of the first times ever
Yeah.
she didn't have a Grammy in her hand. And now switching gears a little bit, let's briefly talk about Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime performance. He has swept this year, taking your diss track to the biggest stage in America at the most viewed live performance of the year. And here are some of my thoughts on it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was an entertaining performance. I liked that he had SZA in there just like jumping in, and
yes.
he sang some of his biggest songs, and I mean, he just won a Grammy. So like
5.
yeah, I mean, it was a pretty awesome way to celebrate.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, any performance with SZA is just going to be amazing. She's an incredibly talented performer. Now, I unfortunately couldn't watch this live because I had other obligations, but I watched it after on Apple Music's YouTube, and I just thought it was so well done, just so artistic. And we all know, or not all of us, but some Kendrick fans, we know that he is inherently extremely political with his rap, messaging, with his performances, with just who he is as a person. And I think there can be an argument said that maybe the Super Bowl wasn't the stage to do it at, but then on the other side, it was the perfect place to do it at because the biggest stage, the biggest night for TV, live TV broadcast, and the President of the United States was there, who I think this was kind of targeted at.
Yeah.
So I think the political messaging was well done in a way that like you could, if you didn't like pay attention as much and you're just kind of watching the performance, you would have missed it. So it wouldn't have been like as much as like, oh, he's doing that. Oh, he's doing that. So yeah, but I think it was very much centered around America, obviously the red, white, and blue. I did some research and I found out that the center of his stage, the tarp, was supposed to represent a prison courtyard. So definitely some messaging there about the prison system. And then the choreography was just very Kendrick choreography. It was very much stiff and very much low and grounded and told so much of a story. And he had so many dancers that were
He
just
did.
so amazing. And I think my favorite part has got to be when he teased Not Like Us, but didn't start it yet and went to This Is a Set. But then when he started it, looked directly into the camera for the Say Drake, and did not hold back. And he's actually like kind of in a legal battle with a defamation lawsuit right now with Drake. So I think that was just bold of him, and I lived for it and I loved it. And we're gonna switch gears a little bit. We're gonna change up the configuration because we have a very special guest coming in for an in-studio interview.
Josh Parkinson is currently a professor here at the University of Iowa who teaches courses in screenwriting. He has written originals and rewrites for Warner Brothers, Sony, Universal, Paramount, and has even held staff writing positions on comedy and horror series. Josh, thank you so much for being here today, and we are so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. Our first question, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in screenwriting.
I am originally from Texas and went to school there, grew up there, all my family's there, and was going to become a novelist.
Okay.
Starving novelist was my goal as a kid. And so that's what I went to school for. And then I went to grad school for that. And then after I starved for a while, I was like, this sucks. I would like to have some money to do things. And so I knew several people working in the screenwriting industry. And they were all having a lot of fun and doing great. And I was like, maybe I'll try that. And so I took a couple of novels I had written and tried to turn them into screenplays, and one of them turned out to be pretty good. And I got it to the people I knew who were working in Hollywood at the time and just started getting work from there. And yeah, so I lived in Los Angeles for 15 years doing that. I still do it, but I've recently moved here with my family, and because you don't really need to be there to do what I do. And so yeah, that's where we're at right now.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So what was your original screenplay that kind of skyrocketed you into this career?
It was a screenplay called Free Country. It was about these three brothers who run this tourist mine. Have you ever seen these where you can pan for your own jewels and stuff?
Yes,
in,
yes.
The mountain areas? Well, they run one of those, and the guy comes in and finds an actual ruby, and they kill him. And they try to cover it up and sell the ruby. So it's a very simple story. It's a very old story. But I'd written a novel first, and I adapted that. And people just loved that script. Not to pat my own back, but everybody loved the script, and so it got me a bunch of work.
That's awesome.
It never got made, but it's had several directors attached to it who tried to get it made, and it's just been a good sample over the years that led to lots of jobs.
That's incredible. So, like, in your opinion, I feel like screenwriting is so broad and very hard to get like that started. What in your opinion is like the golden like if you could give one piece of knowledge, what would it be to be successful?
Well, it's funny because it's different depending on what you want to do. Like, if you want to make movies, that's very different from working in television. And so I'm a broken record on this. It's like, if you want to make movies, then I say go make them. That's always what I tell people, is like, don't go to Hollywood. You're not gonna like, you'll have a much better opportunity to make the movies you want to make by finding your own money and actors and everything, and Hollywood will come to you if they end up being good. For TV, you kind of got to go to Hollywood. It's a totally different decision, life decision. And I think again, I'm a broken record on this, the only thing you can really control out there is who you make friends with. So like building up your cohort, and you got to write all the time. You got to write 4, 5, 6 things and have them ready to go when somebody's like, hey, what do you do? Like, I'm a writer. Oh yeah? What do you write? What do you want to read? I got all of it ready. You can't be like, oh, I have this great idea that I'm gonna write. You have to have them ready to go. So that would be my piece of advice, is the 2 things you can control are your cohort and your product. And like, I would concentrate on those 2 things. Yeah.
Awesome. So in the Hollywood and kind of like LA atmosphere, can you just tell me what that was like? I don't know anyone that's really lived in
Los Angeles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or that has like
I didn't live in Hollywood.
but has worked through like that kind of scene. What is it like there? I know it's very different from anything here.
Yeah, so I grew up in a town of 2,000 people in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Like nowhere. Like soybean fields, it was nothing. But since then, I've only lived in cities. So I lived in Boston for a while. I went to school in Baltimore. And then I lived in Athens, Georgia for a while, which is about the same size as Iowa City.
My brother goes to UGA.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's just like Iowa City, just the concentration is music. And here it's writing.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of funny that way. Yeah. But Los Angeles was like, it wasn't that big of a move for me because I'd already lived in a couple of massive cities. And I don't know, it's a city. I love cities. So my wife and I at the time didn't have any kids, so it was real easy. Kids just make everything hard. But we just kind of moved out there. We saved up a little bit of money and got a U-Haul and just moved from Athens, Georgia to there. And we'd gone out and found a place, and we also had friends there. That's another, I think, big component of moving to any new city, not just LA, but anywhere, is having people, because you're going to get lonely real fast unless you have somebody or meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm not an extrovert, so it was good to have people there, And it sucked for a while. I waited tables while I was out there for almost the first 2 years, I was waiting tables, and miserable, miserable tables. I didn't enjoy that part of it. But then Free Country had kind of taken off, and I just didn't have to do that anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So while I know screenwriting is kind of, I mean, maybe it's not, and you could share some insight, but kind of a solo project when you do write it. But was there anyone in particular that you have gotten to work with that you've really enjoyed, or some really interesting people you've gotten to meet?
You know, it's funny. Again, like TV and movies are very different, because in the movie world, as a writer, you don't really interact a whole bunch with the people that end up making the movie, right? Like you can write the best script in the world, somebody's going to take it and give it to a director, and you're just not going to be a part of the process for the most part in the big movies. That's why I tell people to make their own movies here. As a writer, even if you don't know what you're doing and you have somebody else direct, you're going to be a part of the process and make a product, right? So it's kind of a solo job. You don't really work with a ton of people unless you're friends with the people who are making the movie and blah, blah, blah. But so on the movie side of things, I wrote a bunch of movies, and I rewrote really bad movies at studios that were terrible, and they were like, can you make this better? But I never really worked with anybody outside of like studio executives and producers who are running the show. I mean, you meet people, but I didn't really work closely with anybody. On the TV side of things, I worked on this HBO show called Eastbound and Down. It's a comedy that is getting old now. So I love those guys, Danny McBride and Jody Hill, and the people that put those things together are fantastic. I had a good time working with them. But yeah, it's like in the world of television, I feel like I've met a bunch of people, but I wouldn't say that I've like collaborated with anybody outside of a couple of directors that I wrote movies with, and stuff like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, perfectly.
Great. So these are the studios you work for, big names. They control a lot of the entertainment industry and put out a lot of projects. And you know, we're in the news about a year ago for the writer strikes and the actor strikes. What is it actually like working for one of these big studios?
Well, it's funny because the studios are all made up of people. So they're big kind of sociopathic corporations. But the people inside of them are usually fairly creative and come from places like this. Or I met a lot of people from Iowa out there. But it's like, so they're normal people, right? So it's a balancing act of remembering you got to act like human to other humans, while at the same time protecting yourself from a pretty voracious like entity that wants to milk you dry and not pay you anything. That's their model, not just for writers, but for America. So it's like, I don't know, it's just part of your job is you got to navigate that. And you also have help. Like I have an agent, I have a manager, I have a lawyer. All those people kind of do the navigating too for you in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's like, it's both amazing at times and terrible. And then you can feel like a little cog and get treated poorly, but you can also feel like you were part of something that everybody was super excited about. Even if it doesn't get made, everybody's happy, and you email each other every 6 months and be like, what are you working on? You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned the Eastbound and Down and then you also were writing for a horror series, The Terror, is that correct? So how did, besides the obvious answer that one's comedy and one's horror, is it just a different kind of stylistic of writing?
It makes no sense.
Like how do
it really
you,
doesn't.
Do you tap into different skills for those?
Yeah, the screenplay, so this is a complicated answer. The screenplay I wrote, the Free Country screenplay, it has a very specific tone to it. So it's drama, and it's very grounded, serious stuff that happens, but there's a lot of humor to it that's just built into the characters. And that's kind of a space that I like to live in as a writer. I always think this is not original, but glommed onto it. I like to make people laugh, and the whole time they know they shouldn't be. That's where I like to go as a writer. And so both of those shows kind of had elements of that I could tap into. Definitely Eastbound and Down, but even The Terror, which that's another Iowa alum, Dave Kajanik is the guy who developed that for television and show ran it and created it, basically. I was just like a writer for a very small amount of time on there. But even in that, there was something insane about the situation of what the characters were in that would make me giggle when I was writing about them, even though it's very serious stuff that's going on, you know? So I feel like this business is about character, and it's about structure and story, right? And those three things, whether they are comedy or drama, have to drive everything that you write. So if you can get your head around those three things, then you may not have the knack for jokes, but you can still write funny stuff because people are funny. They act funny, you know? So yeah, does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what are some of your favorite things about being both a screenwriter and a professor, and kind of combine the two about being a screenwriting professor?
Yeah. I've never taught before.
Okay.
It's the first time I've ever done any teaching of any kind. And I do like it. I feel like it's one of those things where you forget all of the stuff that you're supposed to know. And so when you have to tell other people constantly what they're supposed to be looking for, what they're supposed to be doing, it reminds you in this way that you don't even have to think about. You know, it's just like you're saying it all the time. So you're like, why? Because like I'm working on something now, and this morning I was just like, why are you not doing what you're telling your students to do? Like, go back in this scene and do the things you tell them to do, you know? So that part I love, because it just keeps me on my toes, I would say. And also, I just love this job. Like, I love going in with the students and cracking open a story that we've never done before and being like, how do we make this a TV show? I like the challenge of it. I like the muscles it works in my head. I don't know. I just really like it.
That's amazing. It sounds so cool. Like the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, I really want to like just take a class or like dive into it. Like it's so cool to me.
You get all you have to do if you want to write is, and going to class is fantastic, but you guys watch TV, right? Mm-hmm. Just watch it carefully.
Right.
If you watch TV carefully enough, you can write an episode. Like, I never took any classes. I just watched a bunch of movies, and I love movies. And so I would just be like, pause it. We're 25 minutes in. Every single movie I watch at the 25-minute mark has the same thing happen. Every one. So it's like, you just watch those and you start seeing these patterns, and then you start, you do it yourself.
Yeah, I really agree with that. From like a storytelling perspective, even on like a journalistic end,
Yeah.
it's the same like story arc of like a certain pyramid or formula that you're trying to follow. But one of my favorite things to do is watch TV shows or movies and like predict what's going to happen.
Right.
It annoys everyone around me because I'm usually pretty spot on, because in journalism school we learn how to write and tell a good story a little bit differently, because it's like nonfiction based and it's based on how do we communicate effectively. But I really like what you said right there about figuring out how it works. Yeah.
Could not agree more. Like, journalism is just storytelling, so is screenplay, so is fiction, poetry.
Yeah.
All of these are storytelling, and if you have that creative storytelling bug, your compass is going to find one of those to go to. Mine just happened to be screenwriting. But yeah, I would totally agree. Like,
Yeah.
I just read a New York article this morning and was like mesmerized till the very end, because it was a fascinating story,
Yeah. I guess just kind of going off of that, like, do you find yourself more driven towards like the television writing or the movie writing? Like, which one do you kind of prefer?
I wouldn't say I prefer one over the other. They both have big pros and big cons. The TV writing, the big pros of TV writing is you can generally scrounge around a job. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's easier than movie writing. to actually get a paycheck and become part of something that could possibly be on television, it's more likely in the TV world than in the movie world, I would say. That's one pro. And it's also fast. Like when you write something or you pitch something, you're going to get a yes or no quick. In the movie world, they're going to be like, we love this. And then 3 months will go by. And they'll be like, do you still love it? Oh, we still love it. We're talking to some people. A year goes by. You know, you never really get a no. Because they don't have to. And also, if you listen to any story about any movie, the story's going to be, oh yeah, this was like 8 years it took to get this movie made, or I've been working on this since I was 22 and I'm 38 now and I finally got it done. Like, the movie business is like, unless you're out there making your own movies, which again, broken record, go make your own movies. It just takes forever, and you never know when. I got a email 2 years ago that principal photography had started on a movie I rewrote, like 7 years ago. It was just like, I emailed my agent, was like, why is this, what's happening?
Yeah.
The movie never got made. They didn't even start shooting it. So it's just, I don't like that part of it. But movie scripts are generally easier in my opinion, to write than a television pilot, because they answer all the questions, and a TV pilot has to ask a bunch of questions because you want to keep people watching. And I find that part trickier, I guess. That was a long answer, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It's great. So I had this just question pop in my head. I don't know if it's a little bit like, I don't want to say cliche, but if there was an actor that you could pick to be in something that you've written that's either already been on screen or something that you've just written throughout your lifetime, who would that actor be?
Oh,
and
boy.
Who would the character that you've written be?
Like, have them be?
Yeah.
That's a great
It
question.
is a great question. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to answer that.
That's okay.
I got a lot of actors who are working right now who I love. Some of whom I don't even know their name. I just see them in things, and I'm like, oh, she's amazing. I would have to think about that, Hannah. I don't know.
It's okay.
I mean, it's like it brings up an interesting question. Is like a lot of people write characters towards an actor. They have an actor in mind when they write. I generally don't approach it that way, just because generally you can afterwards, once you know who the person is, you go out and find the kind of actor to be them. You know, I will say in Free Country, there was a director attached early on, and he had cast the brothers in his head for who he wanted, and the main brother was Jack Black. Okay. And I will say, I think about that a lot, where I'm like, that would have been amazing to watch him play this like character that is not over the top insane funny, which is what he usually does.
Right.
And have to do like, because he can act. The guy's a good actor. So I think about that a lot. That would have been a cool thing to see on film.
Yeah.
I'll have to get back to you.
That's totally
That's
fine.
great.
That's okay.
That's great.
Yeah, really digging in the woodworks for that one. But it was just something I was curious
No,
about.
it's good. That's a great question.
That is a good
Yeah.
I guess, so I know you said you're from Texas and just recently started have you lived in Iowa for quite some time though, you said?
No.
Or no. So you're kind of newer to the area. So
Yeah.
kind of, if you don't have an answer, that's okay, but how, like, has Iowa opened any doors for you or inspired any stories for you at all?
I don't know, not yet, but we've only been here since August.
Okay.
So it hasn't been a long time, but you know, that's not true. I take that back. This teaching job came at a time when I was really looking for some other outlet to my time. Because another part of this business that is a blessing and a curse is you work for yourself. And so you have a lot of time in between projects or whatever you're doing where you're just not really doing anything but developing other projects. And so I had been me and my wife both have been kind of looking, she's a writer too, to kind of like find something else to do. And this came up at a time when I was really like focused on that. So I would say the answer is yes. Like, this was a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
That opened up, you know, we were also looking to move out of LA for a couple of years, and we didn't have a target. And so this yeah, this allowed us to kind of change our lives in a way that we were hoping to do, you know. So yeah, I would say Iowa was that. I'd never been here before that. So
It's kind of I am from Washington, D.C., so not many kids like even know of the University of Iowa, but it's really interesting like when you get here, like this is like the I think the best screenwriting school, like in my opinion, just from connections, like I just think it's so great, and like it's interesting in the fact that it's Iowa, but like the alumni is like insanely
it's
impressive.
crazy.
So
That's how I got the job. Was there's a bunch of workshop alums and just Iowa alums, not even from the workshop, that work out in Hollywood. And
Yeah.
I happen to know 4 or 5 of them.
yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
writing
it
program.
is. It
So,
really is.
Yeah, and it's on. I've heard people compare it to like a hidden gem because it's, you know, you think of like great writing hubs, you think of East Coast or West Coast,
Yeah.
but right in the Midwest and what people would consider a flyover state is a really, really great program.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, not a lot of people know about it, so it is kind of hidden. And if you find it, like you're really lucky.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know about the workshop. Like the graduate program
Right.
is world renowned. But I would say I didn't know how good like the undergraduate program is, and like all of it just feels writerly, you know, and that I didn't know about besides the workshop. So that was cool.
So, kind of going back to talking a little bit more about the Hollywood and the business aspect, what is the most important takeaway that you've learned so far being in this business?
You got to write as much as you can, and it has to be good. So I would say that, and I would actually tell my younger self to meet more people, to make more of an effort, because like I said, I'm not an extrovert, and I don't think the screenwriting hustle is any different from any other. Is like networking in any kind of career is super important, and I you know, for years was just like, ugh, networking. I'm not going to do that. That's gross. And I feel like that's not true. So I would tell my younger self, like, make an effort to branch out into other, like, I know people who took improv classes for writers, and they met people that they have worked with for the past 20 years, you know? So I would tell my younger self to go do that. Like, you need to go do more of these things to introduce you to a bigger cohort. Because your cohort, when you get to Hollywood, that's who is going to help everybody helps each other get jobs, and they know what's going on in different parts of the business, and somebody's going to become a producer, somebody's going to become a director, somebody's going to become a sound editor, and so you know all those people, you know? So yeah, I would definitely say always write more, and like make a bigger cohort.
I guess I'll kind of wrap up and just ask you, what is the most rewarding project or experience that you've gotten to do so far in your career?
There are a couple. Working on The Terror was pretty profound. The group of people that Dave Kajanik assembled was it was kind of a remarkable chemistry for a writer's room, which doesn't always happen. So I still look on that, even though, you know, I had a tiny bit to do with the overall part of that. I still feel very proud to have been a part of that. And then one of the things I really enjoyed was I got sent the script pretty early on in my career that was written by Ed Helms. Do you know the actor Ed Helms?
Yes, very much.
All right, so this is when he was on The Office, and it was a bananas script that he was really, he still is, like, you know, gets a lot of stuff done. He's got a lot of value. But at the time he was on The Office, he was a big deal. So he was at Warner Brothers trying to get them to make this. It was a time travel movie.
Okay.
It was bonkers. And so I had a meeting over there, and they were like, do you want to, like, we like this idea. Can you write the script? And it was all about the Civil War, because he's a huge Civil War buff.
Okay.
Like, huge. Like, Segway tours through Gettysburg nerd. And I love him in the same
Actually
way.
makes so much sense.
But yeah, so I would go work with him on this script, and that was very rewarding, because it's the closest I've ever kind of worked with both a guy who was writing the script and was also going to be the star of the movie, and he was also just a insanely nice person, like just a very cool guy. And he got like, I'd go work in his trailer on the set of The Office, so he would like take me around the set and be like, yeah, that's where Pam sits, that's where Tim sits.
That is so cool.
It was pretty cool. Yeah.
The Office is my favorite comedy. Like, it's my comfort show. I literally watch it all the time. I never get sick of it. But when you brought up the Civil War thing, it literally reminded me of an episode where they like travel, they take like a trip, and like they have a Abraham Lincoln impersonator there, and he like, it was when he was in charge of The Office, and it was his trip. That just makes so much sense.
It probably, follows, because he's just like a huge, like, I don't know, he just knows all about it. And actually Steve Carell too, he was a producer on that one. And he's a big Revolutionary War buff.
Okay.
So he would actually even do Revolutionary War, what do they call them when you redo them? Like
Reenactments?
Yeah, reenactments,
He would do
yeah.
Revolutionary War reenactments. Steve Carell, not Ed Helms.
That's so
In
amazing.
Massachusetts or Vermont or somewhere up there. I can't remember what it was. I actually never got to meet him. But yeah, that was rewarding, both because Ed's insanely cool, and it was just like I've worked with another director who I loved working with too, but that was like, the guy was going to act in it and he had helped write it, and I don't know, it was like, that was pretty cool.
That's
Yeah, that
incredible.
sounds amazing.
That is, what a great story to tell.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I met Ed Helms. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty
cool. That's amazing.
He's a very nice guy.
Well,
So great to hear.
Thank you so much for just taking the time to come on our show and answer our questions, and we've loved having you, so thank you so much.
You're very welcome. This was fun. Had a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
yeah, thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Word on the Street.
We'll be here every other week to give you your local and national entertainment updates.
I'm Hannah Lipski.
And I'm Grace Lathrop, and we'll see you next time on Word on the Street.